Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're diving into an ancient text, a source that offers a really surprising and I think incredibly relevant perspective on something we all grapple with. How do we balance our responsibilities with, truly living an ethical life?
Indeed. And this particular dialogue, the Dhanañjānisutta, it gives us such a vivid glimpse into this conversation between, well, two really significant historical figures and this very, very relatable character, someone who's trying to make sense of his demanding life.
Right. So our mission today is really to pull out the core wisdom from this centuries-old exchange.
Exactly. We're going to look at that tension.
The tension between what we feel we have to do for others, our duties, and what genuinely counts as right action.
Yeah.
You'll hear about this man, Dhanañjāni, whose life was just packed with obligations.
So many obligations.
But his methods, well, let's just say they were questionable.
Definitely questionable.
And then the really profound, but sometimes, surprising guidance he actually received.
It's quite a story.
So our story kicks off with the revered Sāriputta. He's traveling through a region called Dhanañjāni.
Okay.
And a monk comes to visit him, someone from Rajagaha, with an update.
An update on?
A local Brahmin named Dhanañjāni.
Ah, our main character. So the monk reports Dhanañjāni is physically well, which is good, I suppose.
Right. Seems okay on the surface.
But, and this is crucial, he adds that Dhanañjāni is heedless, pamata, in the original Pali.
Heedless. And that's not just like forgetting your keys, is it?
Not at all. No, it carries serious moral weight here. It means a deep lack of mindful attention.
To his actions.
To his actions. And importantly, their consequences. He's just not paying attention ethically.
And the monk doesn't stop there, does he?
Yeah.
He reveals some, well, pretty problematic behavior.
He really does. This is where it gets juicy, so to speak.
He's described as actively cheating.
Yeah, cheating kings by leaning on Brahmins and householders for support or influence. Okay, and then turning right around and cheating those same Brahmins and householders by leaning on the king. Playing both sides.
Wow. Okay. And it gets worse.
It seems so.
Wow.
His personal life is also a mess. His faithful wife has died, apparently.
Oh, dear.
And she's been replaced by one who is described as unfaithful.
So chaos all around him, really. It paints quite a picture.
It absolutely does. A vivid picture of a man consumed by worldly gain,
Trying to get ahead.
Probably convinced he's just doing what he needs to do, fulfilling his obligations.
Right. The ends justify the means, maybe.
Perhaps that's his thinking. But he's completely sacrificing his ethics in the process.
Which immediately raises that big question, doesn't it?
It does. Can our duties, our responsibilities, no matter how many we have, ever truly justify unethical actions?
That's a powerful question. I mean, you can almost hear someone thinking, well, maybe in really extreme circumstances.
Sure, people might think that.
Does the text address that kind of nuance?
Well, the text is actually pretty clear in its answer, as we'll see unfold.
Okay. But first, Sāriputta, hearing this troubling report.
He wants to meet the guy.
Exactly. He expresses a desire to meet Dhanañjāni. So we follow Sāriputta back to Rajagaha,
Right.
where he eventually finds Dhanañjāni quite literally out in a field.
Doing what?
Busy with his cows just outside the city, a very mundane setting for what's coming.
And Sāriputta just walks up.
Well, he sees him and then invites him for a proper conversation later, under a tree, more conducive to a serious talk.
Okay, so the meeting happens. Dhanañjāni shows up under the tree.
Yep.
And Sāriputta, true to his reputation, I suppose, doesn't beat around the bush.
No small talk?
He gets straight to it, asks him directly, "Are you heedful, Dhanañjāni?"
Boom. Straight in. And Dhanañjāni's response is, I think, incredibly relatable, even today.
How so?
He doesn't exactly deny being heedless. Instead, he launches into this, overwhelming list of duties.
The justification we talked about.
Exactly, claiming these are what prevent him from being anything but heedless.
What's on the list? Let's hear it. Okay, get ready. He says he has to support his parents.
Okay, understandable.
His wife and children.
Yep.
Servants and laborers.
Right.
Friends and associates, relatives, guests, ancestors.
Oh, it keeps going.
Deities, the king.
The king, too. Okay.
And interestingly, even his own body. He lists that as the duty requiring his attention.
That is an exhausting list just to hear.
Isn't it?
Parents, children, servants, friends, ancestors, deities, the king, even himself. It's like his ancient version of a completely overflowing email inbox and Slack notifications.
That's a great analogy. Just constant demands.
So how does Sāriputta handle this avalanche of duties? Does he just nod sympathetically, yeah, mate, tough gig?
Huh. No, not Sāriputta. He certainly doesn't just accept this list of excuses.
Okay.
Instead, he systematically, almost surgically, presses him on each one of these duties.
One by one.
One by one. For each category, parents, wife, king, etc., he asks us this really piercing question.
What?
Basically. Okay, Dhanañjāni. If you act unrighteously akamakari or unjustly visamakari for the sake of your parents,
right,
or your children, or any of these groups, will that actually save you from the consequences? Will it stop you suffering? Will it prevent you from, say, being dragged off to hell by the hell guards? Pretty graphic.
Wow. That is direct. And Dhanañjāni's response?
For every single one of those duties, his answer is a consistent and, yeah, kind of chilling no.
No.
No. He acknowledges it. He admits that even if you cry out, if you protest, doing bad things, even for others, leads to suffering.
And no one can step in.
No one. Not your parents, not your kids, not even the king. They can't intercede on your behalf when the karmic consequences arrive.
There's no loophole. No get-out-of-jail-free card because you were doing for someone else.
Exactly. Zero loopholes. It powerfully highlights individual accountability, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Regardless of the justification, the noble intention you thought you had.
You can't outsource your karma, basically.
Right. Okay, so Sāriputta doesn't stop there, though. He then kind of flips the script.
He does. It's a clever move. For each category of duty they just discussed.
Yeah.
He asks Dhanañjāni, okay, which is better, unrighteous conduct or righteous and equal conduct, using the terms dhammakari, samakari.
So, doing bad stuff versus doing good, fair stuff.
Pretty much. The clear ethical choice.
And what does Dhanañjāni say now, after admitting the consequences?
And here's where it gets really interesting. Dhanañjāni unequivocally states that righteous conduct is always superior.
Always.
Always. This is a critical turning point in their chat. He intellectually gets it.
He understands the principle, even if his life hasn't, matched up to it so far.
Precisely. He knows the right answer when it's put to him so clearly.
And Sāriputta's response to that, his counter for each point.
It's really powerful. For each duty, after Dhanañjāni admits righteousness is better, Sāriputta says something like, see, Dhanañjāni, there are other ways.
Other ways.
Other righteous ways, undertakings with good reasons, by which you can support all these individuals and not commit evil deeds, and also practice the path of merit.
So it's not an either. You don't have to choose between duty and ethics.
Exactly. That's the core message here. It's a profound message of hope, but also practicality. There's always an ethical path, even if it's harder to find or follow.
Okay, so that's a powerful exchange. But the story doesn't end there. Time passes.
Some time passes, yes.
And we meet Dhanañjāni again, but things have changed dramatically.
He's
gravely ill.
Very ill. And he describes his suffering in truly agonizing detail.
Oh, so what does he say?
He uses these incredibly visceral comparisons. He says it feels like a strong man is stabbing his head with a sharp sword.
Oof.
Or like a strong man is binding his head tightly with a tough leather thong. Intense pressure.
Okay.
Then like a skilled butcher is gutting his belly with a sharp knife.
Wow.
And finally, like two strong men are holding a weaker man over a pit of burning coals, scorching him.
That is incredibly graphic.
Yeah.
Really conveys the depth of his suffering.
Absolutely. He's clearly facing his own mortality head on, and it's terrifying him.
So in this state, he reaches out.
He does. He sends a messenger to convey his respects, his greetings, to both the Buddha and Sāriputta.
Okay.
And he urgently requests Sāriputta to visit him, explicitly asking him to come out of compassion.
He's desperate for some kind of spiritual help, some comfort.
Understandably so. The vividness of those descriptions really underscores his desperation.
So Sāriputta agrees and goes to see him.
Yeah, he goes.
Now, you might expect him to offer immediate comfort. Maybe talk about Dhanañjāni's past actions, forgiveness, something like that.
That seems logical, given the situation.
But he doesn't, does he? Instead, he launches into this. Well, it seems like a quite fascinating but maybe strange series of questions.
About the hierarchy of existences, yeah.
Exactly. Why that approach? Why start quizzing a dying, suffering man about different realms of rebirth?
It's a great question, and I think it really shows Sāriputta's deep understanding, his skillful means.
How so?
He starts leading Dhanañjāni up this sort of ladder of realms. He asks, which is better, Dhanañjāni, hell or the animal realm?
And Dhanañjāni says,
animal realm is better. Okay, Sāriputta continues. Animal realm or the ghost realm?
Ghost realm is better.
Right. Ghost realm or the human realm? Human realm. Human realm or the Katimahara devas. These are lower celestial beings.
Devas are better.
Exactly. And he keeps going up through various levels of heavens, Tavatisa, Yama, Tusita, Nimanarati, Paranimita Vasavati devas.
Higher, higher.
Asking which is better each time until finally they reach the Brahmaloka. And Dhanañjāni affirms that is the best, the highest they discuss.
So Sāriputta is basically getting Dhanañjāni to map out his own spiritual aspirations.
Precisely. He's guiding him up this conceptual ladder, getting Dhanañjāni himself to articulate his understanding of spiritual progress and, implicitly, where he'd like to end up.
And this whole sequence clearly reveals Dhanañjāni's aspiration, doesn't it? He wants that higher rebirth.
Definitely. Specifically in the Brahmaloka, which, as you mentioned, was a very common and highly respected goal for Brahmins in that era. It was their ideal.
So Sāriputta picks up on this. He realizes this is what Dhanañjāni is aiming for, consciously or not.
Clearly, he perceives this inclination, and then he decides to teach him specific path to that specific realm.
Ah, okay. So the questioning wasn't random, it was diagnostic.
Exactly. That's what's so fascinating. Sāriputta tailors his teaching precisely to Dhanañjāni's current level of understanding and, crucially, his aspiration.
Meeting him where he's at.
Totally. He teaches him the path to companionship with Brahma.
And what does that involve?
It involves cultivating the 4 Brahmavihāras, the divine abodes.
Which are?
Boundless friendliness, metta, compassion, karun, appreciative joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekkar.
Okay, those 4 qualities.
Yeah. And the practice is to develop these and let them pervade outwards in all directions, filling the world with these positive states of mind. It's a very specific meditative practice targeted directly at achieving rebirth in the Brahma-world.
Got it. So Sāriputta teaches him this tailored path.
Gives him the instructions.
And then he leaves.
He departs.
And shortly after, Dhanañjāni dies.
Yes.
And the text says he is indeed reborn in the Brahmaloka, just as he seemingly aspired to, following Sāriputta's guidance.
Mission accomplished, you might think.
You might. But here comes the twist, a surprising one that adds this whole other layer of complexity.
Right, because later, the Buddha is talking to the monks about this incident.
And what does he say?
He comments that Sāriputta established Dhanañjāni in the inferior Brahma world.
Inferior. But it was presented as the top of that ladder.
Exactly. And the Buddha adds that there was a higher task or achievement, an Uttara something more that could have been taught.
Wow. Okay. That immediately sparks curiosity. Why teach an inferior path if a higher one was possible?
It's a key question.
So, does Sāriputta get confronted about this?
He does. Later, when Sāriputta meets the Buddha again, the Buddha asks him directly about it. Why did you establish him only in the inferior Brahma world when something higher was possible?
And Sāriputta's defense? His reasoning?
It's exactly what we discussed earlier regarding his skillful means. He explains, Lord, I knew that Brahmins, like Dhanañjāni, are deeply inclined towards the Brahmaloka. It's their goal.
So.
Therefore, I taught him the path to companionship with Brahma. He confirms he deliberately chose that path based on Dhanañjāni's specific inclinations.
This is truly profound, isn't it? It raises so many questions about teaching and guidance.
It really does. It highlights this critical principle. Sometimes the most effective path, the most compassionate path, isn't necessarily the highest or the most ultimate one in an absolute sense.
What rather?
Rather, it's the one that the individual is actually ready for, the one they're inclined towards, the one they can genuinely understand and embrace at that specific moment in their journey.
It speaks volumes about compassion, doesn't it? And skillful means.
Immense compassion. Prioritizing accessibility and immediate benefit for that person right then over some abstract ultimate potential that might have been completely out of reach or even confusing for Dhanañjāni at that point.
What a journey through this ancient dialogue. Just incredible. We've seen Dhanañjāni, this man initially drowning in perceived duties,
totally overwhelmed,
slowly come to understand through some pretty sharp questioning that no obligation, no matter how noble it seems, justifies unethical means.
A huge realization for him.
And then we witness the power of Sāriputta's approach, that direct, uncompromising questioning.
No plum punches there.
Followed by this deeply compassionate and incredibly tailored teaching for the dying man.
It's a masterclass in guidance, really.
If we try to connect this to the bigger picture for us today, what are the takeaways?
Well, it's surely a powerful reminder that our intentions matter hugely, but our methods matter just as much.
Right. Good intentions aren't enough if the actions are wrong.
Exactly, and the text insists there are always righteous ways to fulfill our roles in life, even when things feel overwhelming. We just have to find them and choose them.
And the second big takeaway.
That effective guidance, whether you're a teacher, a mentor, a parent, a friend, often means meeting people exactly where they are.
Not where you wish they were, or where the ideal path starts.
Precisely. Not insisting on a path they aren't ready to walk or maybe can't even comprehend yet. It's about finding the next achievable step for them.
So, thinking about this for you, listening, what does this mean? When you consider your own, myriad responsibilities, work, family, community,
We all have them.
how do you ensure that your actions, even when you're stressed, even when driven by the best intentions, remain firmly on that path of righteousness? How do you avoid Dhanañjāni's initial trap?
That's the personal challenge, isn't it?
And when it comes to sharing knowledge or offering guidance to others, how might understanding their current inclinations, their current mindset, help you meet them effectively? Help them take that next step, whatever it is.
It encourages a much more nuanced and compassionate approach to helping others grow.
And maybe one final thought to chew on.
Go on.
Consider the implications of that inferior Brahma world. It was good, better than many other states, but not the highest possibility.
Right. There was an Tarikarana, something further.
So the provocative question for you might be, is there a higher path, a further task you might be overlooking in your own life or your work or your pursuits? Simply because you're comfortable, perhaps, or naturally inclined towards a less challenging, maybe less ultimately fulfilling, but more immediately achievable goal. Are you settling for your own inferior Brahma world?
That's a deep question to reflect on. Meeting ourselves where we are, but also asking if there's something more we could be ready for.
Food for thought indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep digging for those nuggets of insight.